Alright guys, so today we're going to be checking out the brand new EarFun clip. This is basically EarFun's premium way of getting into the clip-on style earbuds. Again, we've said this previously that this is the way that a lot of companies are going because it's kind of allowing people to just stay in their normal day-to-day life and still be able to listen to what it is they want to listen to and still be aware of their surroundings. But EarFun is doing it in a typical EarFun kind of way. They're giving you a lot of the premium things that we're seeing in some of the more expensive clip-on earbuds, but they're not bringing that high price tag with it. So the EarFun clips come in retailing at $69, but because they're just released and because they're, on sale and a coupon code and all of those different things that you can do on Amazon, right now you can actually pick these up for only $52. So we're going to consider these a $50 pair of clip-on style earbuds. And when we talk about some of the features, you'll kind of see what I'm talking about. You'll see that it has features that some of the more expensive ones have, and that $50 starts to show you why there's a lot of value in these. And some of these features is it is high-res wireless certified. It does support LDAC playback, so you're getting some of the best Bluetooth quality that you can get. It also has Bluetooth 6.0, so it's one of the few devices that we've tested that has this. It also supports multi-point connection, so you can connect to more than one device at a time. It also has a theater mode, which is basically like the spatial audio mode, but I am glad that they call it theater mode so that you really know that you shouldn't use this for music. Theater mode, spatial audio, 3D sound, whatever, never sounds good with just listening to music. Music's not meant to be heard this way, or somebody's just not perfected it this way yet. But for movies and TV shows, it's actually good for this. It does give it a good amount of space, it gives things a lot more depth. And it just kind of has a more realistic feel to it. So it's nice that it has this feature. There's also a gaming mode. So if you are going to watch movies or TV shows, you could switch it into that mode where you don't have to necessarily worry about lag. Another huge plus, and a thing that I think a lot of companies kind of overlook, is the IP rating. So the IP rating on these are IP55. The good thing about that is it gives you not only some decent water protection against rain and splashes and sweat and things like that, it is also giving you dust protection as well. So again, for a pair of earbuds that's made to be worn in your everyday life, just every situation, that IP55 is just kind of peace of mind that you can, go out and do what you need to do and it's not going to damage your earbuds. Now, as far as the look and the design of these, now the case, again, this is nothing special. I don't know how much they can actually do with the clip-on style earbuds when it comes to the case. It has like a silver or matte finish. It does a really good job at not picking up fingerprints, so that's a huge plus. On the bottom, you can see the USB-C input. That's how you would actually charge the case. And then there's also a pairing button located on the bottom as well. And so when you flip up the lid, you can see that the earbuds are sitting in there pretty nicely. The earbuds themselves are using button control, so you don't have to worry about accidental touches every time you're trying to adjust these. And another thing is, I'm happy to say that they give you control over everything. Now, they do also give you the option to go within the app if you do want to switch some controls around, but it's nice to know that you don't have to. Now, speaking of the app, I really do recommend downloading this right off the bat. That way you can make sure that your earbuds are updated. There are some EQ options in here, which is nice to be able to play around with. There's also a bass surge mode, which I will highly recommend, and we'll talk about that a little bit more once we get to the sound. And then there's also the ability to turn your LDAC on and off as well. So having LDAC, you always want to make sure that that's turned on. All of this, again, can be done within the app, which is much better than what it used to be. EarFun's app has come a long way. It's got a mainstream, very clean look. It's easy to operate and get around. So it's nice that they've listened to some criticism and fixed things along the way. Now, as far as what they've included in the box, it's simple. You just get this really tiny USB-C cable, which you will need to charge these because the case is not Qi wireless charging compatible. And speaking of the charging, this is another huge plus with this pair because, again, a style of earbud that's made to be worn all day needs to kind of match by having all-day battery life. And on a full charge, you can get 10 hours on the earbuds themselves. And with the charging case, you can get about 40 hours total. So you've got 10 hours on the earbuds, 30 hours on the case. That gives you your 40 hours. Now that's just listening to these with the LDAC off. If you are going to listen to these with the LDAC on and the bass surge on, there's different things that will cause the battery life to not give you that 10 hours. So do keep that in mind. That's going to take a hit in the battery life if you have those features turned on. But if you do happen to pick these up and they are dead, it does have a fast charging feature where a 10-minute charge is going to get you about 2.5 hours of use. Now, if you are also going to use these for taking phone calls, they do have dual mics. They also are using AI to kind of have environmental noise canceling. This way it will just focus in on your voice and it'll just do what it can to just block out a lot of your surroundings. But you guys can be a judge by listening to a test here. So here is a mic test using the EarFun clip. I am outdoors. It's not really a windy day today, but I do hear some birds and things off at a distance. But really, this is just to give you an idea of what it would sound like if you were to take a call in public. So now let's talk about the sound. And before we get into the sound, the first thing is I'm going to say that these are using custom 10.8 millimeter dynamic drivers, which in my opinion are pretty powerful, but not necessarily powerful in the way that you would think. Now, if you just use these just the way that they are out of the box, and you don't do any kind of EQing, you don't turn the bass surge on, you don't do anything like that, you might be a little underwhelmed. Now, not underwhelmed when it comes to the volume. The volume is definitely pretty loud on these right out of the box, but there's not a whole lot of presence in the low end. It's not a very bass heavy sound or feel, which isn't really unexpected with this style of earbud. But I did notice that, once I went in and I turned the LDAC on, turned the bass surge on, that's where it started to bring out the low end. In fact, it actually warms up the sound quite a bit, and it lowers the volume a little bit. So I learned that when I had the bass surge on, I was having to listen to these a little bit louder or turn the volume up more to get the same amount of volume output before having that bass surge on. So do keep in mind some of these things do affect the volume level. But with the bass surge on and with LDAC, that is the sweet spot with these. I didn't have to necessarily mess around with the EQ after that. It starts to have a very dynamic feel to it. Now, you're never going to get that subwoofer type bass. It doesn't have that rumble in the low end. It doesn't have that like thick punch that just sits around. But the bass is still pretty impactful. It's just faster. It's very quick, which kind of lends itself pretty well to different genres that aren't pop and hip hop. So if you listen to anything that's pretty chaotic like metal, it's very, very good at keeping up with each hit of the drums. It does a really good job with vocalists. I think the mids on these are bumped up just slightly. And I think they did that just enough to make sure that it doesn't get lost with everything else that's going on. And the treble on these, I felt like were very, very detailed. Now, again, I do feel like once you turn the bass surge on, it pulls back the treble a little bit. So you may want to go into the EQ settings and spike up the treble some to kind of bring it back from what the bass surge is doing to just the normal EQ that these have. Now, the sound stage and the sound imaging on these, to be expected, it is a fairly open sounding pair of earbuds because that's what it's designed to be. It's designed to be where you can just listen to them in your environment and still hear everything around you. So it has that very open feel to it, but it does such a good job of being able to tell where different sounds are coming from. And if you do want to open it up a little bit more, you can turn it into that theater mode. But again, I do not recommend this if you're going to be listening to just music with the theater mode. Just please do not do that. It is not going to do your music any justice. So if you're just looking in the market right now at the clip-on style earbuds, you'll notice it's kind of getting a little overwhelming. There's a lot of brands and a lot of companies releasing these. Bose has the very expensive one. Shox has a pretty expensive pair, but there's a lot of these in the budget realm, on the under $100 and the ones that are sitting at around $50 that really do compete with those and really do give you a lot of the same features, gives you the same sound quality or similar sound quality. And I think EarFun has kind of done that. They brought out a pair that right now you can get for 50 bucks. And I don't feel like you're giving up a lot of those features. You're not giving up battery life. You're getting really good protection against dust and against different levels of water, as long as you're not dropping them into water. Having the LDAC playback, having Google Fast Pair, having Bluetooth 6.0, it has a lot of the modern features. It has a lot for that $50 price tag. And again, I think that's what makes this an easy pair to recommend. But guys, that's my video on the brand new EarFun clips. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Thank you so much for checking out all the other videos. And as always, make sure to stay tuned for more.